Well, hello folks, and welcome back to The Slice. If you weren't watching tennis last week or the last week and a half, you were absolutely missing out because the ATP Cup, a new tournament on the tour, went down. Novak Djokovic and Serbia ended up winning it, beating Nadal and Spain in the final. So lots went down. We're going to get into it on this episode of The Slice, talk about what happened, and talk about how the amount of matches these guys played, like Djokovic and Nadal, are going to affect them in the Australian Open. So let's get into it on this episode of The Slice and see what happened.
Welcome to The Slice.
Welcome to The Slice.
Welcome to The Slice.
Rightio, mate. Thanks for tuning in. Out here with my Bagel Time mug and my new little mini tennis racket. That's my Australian accent, and this is an old head instinct, I think. But anyways, thanks for tuning in, folks. Welcome to the show. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button and like this video because it helps other tennis fans see it. Also, check out the Patreon page if you want to support The Slice and get involved in the action. We're posting a live call-in show very soon on there. You can also listen to the Patreon show on the Slice Tennis podcast. So just search The Slice Tennis on the podcast app, and then you can hear it. So the ATP Cup went down, and it was awesome. I already talked about it. I already did a show about all the craziness happening with Team Australia, just the matches that had happened in the group stages leading up to the quarterfinals, leading up to the semifinals, and then we made it to the final where Serbia was playing Spain. Kind of, if you at the beginning of the tournament, the two powerhouses with the number one and number two best players in the world being Nadal and Djokovic, number one, number two. And they clashed in the final. Now, Spain had some pretty good, Spain and Serbia had some pretty good supporting acts. Nadal is obviously the number one player on Spain, and he was backed up by Roberto Bautista Agut, RBA, old Djokovic killer, they would call him, because he beat him twice last year on hard courts. And Roberto Bautista Agut he's a veteran. He's one of those good players who seems to be getting better with age, and he's super good on hard courts. And he was very good in this tournament. So RBA was a good supporting act to Nadal, and then Djokovic had Dusan Lajovic as the number two player, who has been a bit of a scrub in the past for sure. I've definitely kicked him aside when I'm in matchups because he's usually just not doing much, but he played a lot better last year and had some really good results, started to be a lot stronger and a lot better contender in tournaments. And in the ATP Cup, he played very well, got some big wins for Serbia in the singles there, and just played at a super high level. So that kind of brought the two teams together into the final. RBA beat Lajovic pretty soundly, just played some surgical tennis on the hard court, was hitting shots. He's just like a no-nonsense guy, RBA. He's like so strategic, and his strokes are like very kind of not flashy, but just perfect, and causes a lot of problems, obviously, especially for the Serbians, beating Djokovic and Lajovic in this tournament. And then So Spain started the final with the lead, and then it came to Djokovic Nadal, which is the matchup we all wanted to see throughout the entire tournament, the two heavyweights going at it. And Djokovic came out and played extremely well and kind of blasted Nadal off the court. It was a tight match still, but the difference, I think, was Djokovic's aggression. It reminded me a lot of, in a sense, last year's Australian Open final, because of the difference. If you watch Djokovic during the tournament, he looked good. He won all of his matches. He went 6-0. But he lost a couple sets to Shapovalov and to Medvedev. And in those matches, he definitely had to grind. He had to play classic Djokovic style, which is where when it got down to the biggest moments, he just refused to miss, and he just refused to lose those matches. He didn't look unbelievable in those matches. I don't think he looked his best, but then against Nadal, it seemed like he was his best. And he stepped it up, and he seemed to play a lot more aggressive tennis, and that took Nadal by surprise a bit, and he was able to really wrong foot him a couple times, come in when needed, and play super well in that. So he got the best of Nadal in this match. Djokovic attacked Nadal's second serve. Nadal only won about 30% of his second serve, which is not good enough. It was still a close match, though. Out of the breakpoint chances, Djokovic won two out of his 8 breakpoint chances, and Nadal was unable to convert on any of his 5 breakpoint chances. So that kind of tells the story there. 2-set match, 2 sets was all Djokovic needed, but in a 3-set match, it can come down to just the difference of a couple breaks. So that's how the finals went down. The crowd and just the atmosphere during the ATP Cup was absolutely epic. There's apparently a lot of Serbian fans in Australia, a lot of Serbs down there, because the Serbian team, I noticed, had lots of support, and Djokovic had tons of support. When you don't always see that around the tour, for sure, especially when he plays guys like Federer. And then all the Djokovic fans get real salty. But the Serbian fans, if I can be biased for a moment here, when they were playing my guys at Canada, Shapovalov is serving like in the air. The Serbian fans are calling out and distracting him, which is dusty. But that's kind of the nature of the game, especially when it gets into team tennis. What do you guys think about the coaches and the players being on the court and them being able to talk to them, obviously, during changeovers? It's like totally new. They've never been able to do this on the ATP Tour as far as I know. I know Federer's not really a fan of it. Federer also didn't show up to this tournament. Switzerland didn't have a team because of that, probably. So yeah, that's interesting. I don't know how I feel about it. It kind of makes it cool, but I don't want it to be the norm. I want it to be mano a mano like it normally is on the ATP Tour. So that's my thoughts on that. But let's talk about Djokovic and Nadal each playing 6 matches in singles and then a couple doubles as well. So a lot of tennis in this last week and a half with only a week break between now and the Australian Open. Will that affect them? I don't know. They're both old. Federer or Nadal's older than Djokovic slightly, and his body's, you could say, more worn down. But Djokovic won all 6 of his matches, played great against Nadal in the final. He didn't look his absolute best, but again, it's the beginning of the year. But before this, the ATP Cup, he played an exhibition match over New Year's or an exhibition tournament over New Year's. So he's been playing. He hasn't just been resting. He's been playing, which, it's hard to say what that's going to do for Djokovic. He might have some injury flare-ups like we saw in the US Open and the Australian Open because of how much he's been playing, but that's just hard to say right now. With Nadal, I think it might take some energy out of him. 6 matches in singles, bunch of doubles. Some of these matches were long, and it can't be good. I don't think it could be good for him leading up to the Australian Open. Like we saw him win the Montreal tournament last year in the summer, take the week off. Nadal took the week off in Cincinnati, then showed up to the U.S. Open a little bit more refreshed and won it. So, he has the week off now, but it's still going to get right back into the swing of things in the hot Australian sun. You never know how that's going to affect Nadal. I don't know if that was super wise for them to play before the Australian Open, but both these guys are younger than Federer, so they might get affected. I think if Federer played, he would have been affected, but he didn't play, so he's going to be super fresh coming into the Australian Open. So we're really just going to have to wait and see where these guys' levels are at in the first few matches of the Australian Open. But needless to say, I am insanely stoked for the Australian Open. We got some new things, special things coming for the fans of the Slice during the Australian Open. We're going to be making tons of videos. Stay tuned on Instagram. Make sure you follow at the Slice Tennis on Instagram, where you're going to be doing a giveaway, daily content, daily updates. I do just on the Instagram stories little takes of matches that I'm watching because it takes longer to make these long form videos. So definitely follow us at the Slice Tennis on Instagram during the big show for all the action. And then that way you won't miss out on any of the action from your boy Steven at the Slice. So anyways, that is the end of this video. Let me know what you thought of the ATP Cup, all the different rule changes, and how you think it affected Nadal and Djokovic. And now, before this video ends, I want you to check out this box here, which is our product reviews. Been playing with some cool things, some different strings, shoes. Check out the videos there. Let me know what you think of those things and if I'm a good reviewer.